No one in Washington state ever dared to knock on the Blackthorn Mansion's iron doors until a starving homeless girl named Zoe climbed the hill in the freezing night. She came seeking help. She left with a secret that would change the vampire world forever. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now, let us begin. The wind on Blackthorn Hill was cruel, sharp enough to cut through coats, skin, and hope. It howled across the pines, scattering brittle branches over the long, winding road that led to the mansion. But Zoe kept walking, bare feet numb, fingers trembling, her backpack half torn, the zipper long broken. Every step was a fight. She wasn't supposed to be here. Homeless kids didn't walk into vampire territories. Homeless kids didn't even survive long enough to think about it. But Zoe wasn't like most kids. She was stubborn, tired, and running out of time. The sun had set hours ago, leaving the sky a deep purple, one of those eerie winter nights when even the moon seemed too cold to shine. Zoe hugged herself against the chill and stared up at the looming structure ahead. The Blackthorn Mansion. People whispered about it. Cops avoided it. Humans pretended it didn't exist. Everyone said it belonged to monsters. But Zoe had learned something in her 13 years of life. Monsters with mansions usually had money. Monsters with money sometimes needed help. And if they needed help, maybe they answered the door. Her breath shook. She reached the massive iron gates, twisted black metal coiled into thorny shapes. They towered over her, at least 3 times her height. No bell, no keypad, just cold, ancient iron. Zoe swallowed. She lifted one trembling hand and knocked. 2 taps. Soft. Unsure. Nothing. She knocked again. Harder. Still nothing. Her heart sank. Maybe she was stupid for trying. Maybe she should have stayed under the bridge with the others, shivering, waiting for a miracle that would never come. Maybe. The gate groaned. A low, heavy sound like a beast waking up. The iron slowly slid open, scraping along the ground. Zoe stumbled back as a sudden wave of warm air drifted out, carrying a scent she didn't expect. Fresh bread. She blinked. Bread? In a vampire mansion? Before she could think about running, a silhouette appeared. A girl her age, pale skin, long black hair, wearing lavender pajamas with tiny bats on them. Her arms were crossed, and her expression screamed annoyance more than danger. Ivy Blackthorn, vampire princess, and clearly not used to unexpected visitors. "What are you doing here?" Ivy asked, voice sharp but curious. "This is private property." Zoe opened her mouth, but her voice cracked. I need help." Ivy's eyes narrowed. "From us? Do you even know who lives here?" She knew. Everyone knew. But Zoe lifted her chin anyway. "I heard you hire people." Ivy almost laughed. "Not kids. We don't hire kids. Were you 12? 13? Zoe muttered. "Almost 14. You look younger." Zoe had no energy to be insulted. Her knees wobbled. Ivy's eyes softened, just a fraction. "Are you hurt?" No, Zoe shook her head. "Just cold. Just tired. Just hungry. Just alone." She didn't say those parts. Ivy hesitated. Then she turned slightly, looking over her shoulder toward the house. "My dad won't like this." Zoe's stomach clenched. She knew who Dad was. Tristan Blackthorn, oldest surviving vampire in Washington. Infamously private, dangerous, rich beyond imagination, and father to this irritated, bratty girl now staring her down. Zoe wrapped her arms around herself. "Please, just let me talk to someone." Ivy sighed dramatically, like Zoe was ruining her night. But before Ivy could respond, the mansion doors opened. A tall, striking man stepped out. White male, black coat, red eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Hair slightly tousled like he had just woken up. Vampires didn't sleep, but it looked like he'd tried. His presence drained the warmth from the air. He didn't look scary. He looked powerful. Tristan Blackthorn. His gaze locked on Zoe instantly, reading her like an open book. His face didn't show emotion, just that eerie calmness immortal beings always seem to have. "Ivy," he said quietly, "why is there a child at the gate?" I didn't invite her. Ivy answered quickly. She came knocking. Said she needs help. Tristan's gaze lowered to Zoe again. Is that true? Zoe could barely nod. He stepped closer. Not fast, not threatening, just quiet. Controlled. His coat brushed against the cold wind, making him look like some kind of dark angel or fallen king. He stopped a foot in front of her. What is your name? Tristan asked. Zoe. Your last name? She hesitated. I don't have one. Tristan's jaw tightened. Ivy's eyes widened. Zoe's shame deepened. Tristan tilted his head slightly. No parents. No. Home. No. Anyone looking for you? No. For the first time, something flickered in Tristan's expression, an unreadable emotion, cold but not cruel. He studied her clothes, her ruined backpack, her frost-nipped fingers. Then his voice dropped low. Why did you come here, Zoe? Zoe swallowed hard. Her throat burned. Her eyes stung. She forced the words out. Because everyone says you're a monster. She breathed shakily. But monsters don't pretend to care. Humans do, and humans never helped me. Ivy froze. Tristan blinked slowly. Zoe continued, voice trembling. I just need a chance. I'll work, clean, cook, anything. I don't want to steal. I don't want to freeze outside. I just want one chance. Her knees finally gave out. Ivy rushed forward without thinking, grabbing Zoe's arm to steady her. Dad, she's freezing. Zoe wobbled, barely conscious. Tristan immediately knelt, faster than she expected for someone so composed, and lifted her chin with one gloved hand. Her pulse slowed. Her breathing thinned. Her eyes rolled. Tristan spoke softly. Zoe, look at me. She tried so hard. You came here, he said. That alone is courage. His voice lowered further, almost a whisper only she could hear. But you also came into a predator's home. Do you understand the danger? Zoe nodded weakly. Yes, but I didn't have anywhere else. Tristan exhaled quietly, an ancient, tired sound. He looked at Ivy. I'll take her inside, he said. Get blankets. Ivy rushed off. Tristan scooped Zoe up effortlessly. She expected coldness, but his body radiated unnatural warmth, like a furnace wrapped in moonlight. Her head dropped against his chest. Her eyes fluttered. Her fingers relaxed. But she managed one last whisper. Please don't make me leave. Tristan paused at the doorway. I'm not sending you back outside. His voice was firm, final, unquestionable. You knocked on my door, Zoe. He glanced down at her. And I always answer those who dare knock. Her eyes closed. She let herself fall into sleep for the first time in days. And Tristan carried her across the threshold of Blackthorn Mansion. Warmth. It was the first thing Zoe felt. Not soft, not gentle, but warm. A deep, steady warmth that wrapped around her like a thick winter coat. She didn't remember falling asleep. She didn't remember being carried. All she knew was that her fingers no longer felt like ice, and her lungs didn't hurt when she breathed. She blinked. The ceiling above her was impossibly high, painted with dark constellations and glowing symbols she didn't understand. She lay in a bed far too big for someone like her, covered in thick silver blankets. A fireplace burned on the far side of the room, crackling with blue flames instead of orange. Zoe panicked. This wasn't her bridge. This wasn't the shelter. This wasn't the street. This was a room, a real room, a safe room, and that scared her more than anything. Zoe sat up quickly, too quickly, and the room spun. She clutched her head. A voice came from the doorway. Relax. You almost fainted last night. Zoe froze, turned. Ivy Blackthorn leaned against the doorframe with a mug in her hands, sipping something red. Not blood, Zoe hoped. Ivy's hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, and she wore simple leggings and a black hoodie that said "Bite Me" in glittery letters. A vampire joke? Zoe croaked. Ivy smirked. Obviously, she stepped into the room, eyes scanning Zoe from head to toe, like she was both interesting and annoying. You look better. Way less frozen. Zoe pulled the blanket around herself. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be a problem. Ivy raised an eyebrow. You walked to a vampire mansion at night and knocked on the gate. Trust me, that's not a normal problem. That's something else. She sat at the edge of the bed, legs crossed. Zoe tensed. She wasn't used to beds, or houses, or people sitting beside her like she belonged here. Ivy noticed. Her voice softened barely. I'm not going to hurt you, you know. If I wanted to, I would have done it last night. That's comforting, Zoe muttered. Ivy shrugged. You're weird. You're a vampire. So that's weirder. Ivy snorted. Okay, fair. For a moment, the room was quiet, but not uncomfortable. Just strange. New. Like they were two planets slowly discovering they shared the same orbit. Then Ivy glanced at the door. My dad wants to talk to you. Zoe's stomach dropped. Am I in trouble? Ivy hesitated. I don't know, but he wasn't angry. And trust me, when he's angry, you'll know. Zoe swallowed hard. Tristan Blackthorne's office. If the bedroom felt overwhelming, the office felt terrifying. Not because of danger, but because it felt ancient. Heavy books lined every wall. Old weapons were displayed behind glass. Maps, scrolls, portraits, a whole museum of vampire history. Tristan stood near the window, hands behind his back, his posture impossibly straight. Daylight filtered through enchanted curtains, turning his eyes into smoldering garnet. He looked like a king deciding the fate of a country. Except the country was Zoe. Ivy nudged her forward. Go on. Zoe stepped inside, feeling tiny. Sir, Tristan. His head turned slightly, acknowledging her. Zoe, come sit. She sat on the dark leather chair across from him, gripping the armrests. Tristan studied her quietly, the room filled with nothing but the sound of the crackling fireplace. You slept for 12 hours, he finally said. Your body was exhausted. Zoe nodded, eyes down. Sorry, do not apologize for surviving. She looked up, surprised. Tristan continued. You came here for work, to earn a place, not to beg. His gaze sharpened. So tell me why. Not the short answer from last night. The real one. Zoe breathed in shakily. Then she told him. The late nights under the bridge. The shelter closing. Kids stealing blankets. Adults hurting each other. The hunger. The cold. The fear. And the worst part, watching other kids get opportunities she never had because she had no address, no parents, no records. Everyone says vampires don't care about humans, Zoe whispered. But humans didn't care about me either. So I came here because I didn't have anywhere else. Tristan listened without interrupting once. When she finished, she expected pity, or dismissal, or annoyance. Instead, he said, You're brave. She blinked. What? Most adults could not walk the road you walked. Most children would not have survived it. Oxygen rushed back into Zoe's lungs. Then Tristan added, But bravery alone is not enough. If you stay in this house, Zoe, you will live under strict rules. You will obey them. You will follow this family structure. And you will be expected to work. Zoe nodded quickly. I can work. I'll do anything. I will not allow you to scrub floors or wash dishes like a servant. Tristan interrupted. You are a child, not an employee. But you don't hire kids, Zoe whispered. A faint smile ghosted across his lips. I'm not hiring you. Ivy, standing behind Zoe, frowned. Then what are you doing? Tristan answered without taking his eyes off Zoe. I'm offering something else. Zoe's heart pounded. First, Tristan said, you will stay here temporarily. You will have food, a room, clothes, safety, temporarily. The word stung, but Zoe nodded. Second, he continued, you will receive basic lessons. Zoe blinked. Lessons? Like school. Not formal, Tristan said. Ivy will handle reading, writing, and arithmetic. She is capable. Ivy looked like she wanted to protest, but Tristan shot her a look. She shut up. Third, Tristan said quietly, voice lowering, you may accompany Ivy in certain daytime activities. This will give you social structure and routine, something essential for children. Zoe's chest tightened. And me? With Ivy. Ivy rolled her eyes, but didn't object. And lastly, Tristan said, voice calm and steady, you'll earn your place here. Not through labor, but through discipline and effort. Zoe nodded vigorously. I can do that. I will. I promise. Tristan leaned forward, eyes intense but gentle. Zoe, yes. This is not a charity. I do not pity you. I do not see you as weak. His voice softened. I am giving you a chance. A real one. Zoe's throat closed up. She pressed her hands over her mouth, stopping the tears. Tristan blinked, almost surprised. You are safe here, he said firmly. But safety requires rules. If you break them, you leave. If you disrespect this house, you leave. If you lie, I won't, she whispered. Good, Tristan finished. Then we understand each other. Zoe wiped her eyes. Tristan stood. Ivy, take her to the dining room. She needs food. Ivy tugged Zoe's sleeve. Come on. Zoe stood to follow, but Tristan called her name one last time. Zoe. She turned. You're no longer alone. Her breath caught. For the first time in years, she believed it. The next morning, sunlight spilled over the mansion's sprawling halls, filtered through enchanted curtains that turned the deadly rays into soft golden glimmers. Zoe awoke wrapped in blankets thicker than any she'd ever owned, the warmth of the room chasing away the nightmares that clung to her from nights on the streets. She rubbed her eyes, blinking at the room around her. Ivy had left a small tray of food on her nightstand: toast, honey, and a cup of warm milk. Zoe's stomach growled so loudly she was almost embarrassed. Hunger was a constant companion, but she had learned early how to ignore it. Now, though, she could eat. She could breathe. She could exist without fear. Her hand shook as she picked up a piece of toast, almost afraid it would vanish if she took a bite. I wouldn't eat like that if I were you, a voice said from the doorway. Zoe jumped and turned. Ivy was leaning against the frame, hair slightly messy, pajamas smudged with sleep. She tilted her head and smirked. You're too polite, Ivy added. Take it. Eat. Zoe nodded and whispered, thank you. Ivy rolled her eyes. Don't make me repeat myself. And don't say thank you like it's a magic spell. You're my house now. You eat. Zoe laughed softly, the sound foreign even to her own ears. She hadn't laughed in weeks, maybe months. Ivy's sarcasm, though sharp, felt almost like home. After breakfast, Tristan called both girls to the library. It was enormous, stretching the length of the mansion's west wing. Shelves rose to the ceiling, stacked with books bound in leather, some so old their covers crumbled at the edges. Candles floated midair, illuminating the room with flickering gold. Tristan stood at the center, arms crossed, waiting. Today, Tristan said in a voice both commanding and calm, you will begin your lessons. Zoe, you will learn to read. Ivy will guide you. Pay attention. Mistakes are allowed, but not carelessness. Zoe's heart pounded. Reading? Actual reading? Her mother had taught her a few letters before disappearing, but words were always intimidating, like living creatures she didn't understand. Now, here she was, sitting in a mansion with a vampire king, about to be taught by his daughter. Ivy, noticing her hesitation, leaned over and whispered, It's okay. I'll show you. You're not alone. Come on. They sat side by side on a long rug in the center of the library. Ivy pulled out a book, one with bright illustrations and simple sentences. She pointed to the first word, son. Say it, Ivy prompted. Zoe's lips trembled. Sue, son. Good. Again, Ivy encouraged. Louder this time. Son. Zoe shouted, proud. Ivy clapped softly. See? Not so hard. You've got this. Hours passed, the two girls sitting on the rug, surrounded by towering bookshelves and the faint scent of old paper. Ivy taught Zoe letters, words, numbers, and even basic math using small stones she arranged in lines. Zoe's confidence grew, her smiles becoming more frequent. But Tristan observed quietly from a balcony above, watching their interactions. Something stirred in him, a strange mix of pride, fear, and uncertainty. He wasn't used to human children, and even less to seeing one succeed alongside his daughter. As the afternoon sun waned, Ivy leaned back and said, Okay, last lesson for today. Let's see how much you remember. She flipped open the book to a page with a simple sentence. The cat sits on the mat. Zoe read aloud, stumbling slightly, but finishing the sentence. Ivy's eyes lit up. Perfect. You did it. Zoe's chest swelled. I actually read it. Of course you did, Ivy said. You just needed practice and a little help from me. Zoe laughed, a sound pure and bright, echoing in the library. Then Ivy's expression shifted slightly, a shadow crossing her face. But don't think this means you're catching up faster than me. I still know more than you. Zoe grinned. I'm not trying to compete. I just want to learn. Ivy nodded. Good. That's the right attitude. For now. Later that evening, after dinner, Tristan called Zoe to his study alone. Ivy had gone to her room, muttering something about reading being boring but necessary. Tristan closed the door behind them. The room was dimly lit, shadows flickering along the walls. He gestured for Zoe to sit. You have adapted remarkably quickly. Tristan began, his tone even but weighty. Most children would have panicked in my home. Most would have run away. Zoe swallowed hard. I want to be good. I don't want to cause problems. Tristan leaned forward slightly, his eyes locking with hers. Goodness isn't measured by behavior alone, Zoe. It's measured by choices. And you made the choice to come here. You made the choice to learn. That tells me more about you than your past ever could. Zoe felt warmth in her chest. She had never heard anyone speak to her like this. Not teachers, not strangers, not even her mother before she disappeared. For a moment, she allowed herself to believe she belonged. Tristan continued, softer now. Ivy is complicated. She doesn't understand humans fully. She has spent her life within these walls, under my protection. She may not show it, but she is wary of your presence. She may even resent it at times. Zoe nodded slowly. I didn't mean to upset her. You haven't, Tristan assured her. But you must understand, the relationship between a vampire child and a human child is delicate. You will need to be patient, Zoe, and brave. Zoe swallowed. I can be brave. Tristan stood, moving toward the window. The moonlight filtered in, casting a pale glow on his face. I'll be honest, Zoe. I don't know what will happen next. I only know that you have potential, more than you may realize. And if you continue to make the right choices, you may find a place here. Zoe's eyes widened. A place here? Before she could respond, Tristan turned sharply. But remember this. Trust is earned. Respect is given. And safety is never guaranteed. Not even in my home. Zoe nodded solemnly. She felt the gravity of his words. This was no ordinary household. No ordinary family. And she was no ordinary child. The next few days blurred together in lessons, laughter, and quiet tension. Zoe and Ivy began to bond, though Ivy's pride and natural competitiveness often led to small arguments. Zoe learned to read faster, but Ivy still held the upper hand, insisting she knew more than Zoe. One afternoon, Tristan watched from his study window as the two girls played with counting stones outside. Zoe had made a small tower of 10 stones. Ivy knocked it down with a sly grin. See? You forget sometimes, Ivy teased. Zoe laughed. I'll rebuild it. Tristan's chest tightened. The sight of their friendship, fragile and fledgling, stirred emotions he had buried for decades. Then a thought struck him, sharp and sudden. What if Zoe's presence endangered Ivy? Humans were unpredictable. Children could stumble into dangers Tristan couldn't control. He had protected Ivy from the world for centuries. And yet, here was someone who could change everything. A question formed in Tristan's mind. Is allowing Ivy to experience the world through Zoe's eyes worth the risk of exposing her to danger? And Tristan knew he wouldn't be able to ignore it forever. At the end, they were more than friends, allies, and mirrors of each other's loneliness. Zoe had learned to read, laugh, and trust. Ivy had begun to open her heart beyond the walls Tristan had built. Winter had begun its slow siege over the mansion grounds. Snow dusted the blackthorn gardens in a delicate white, sparkling under the pale moonlight. Ivy and Zoe trudged through the frost-covered paths, carrying a small pile of books Tristan had assigned for practice. Zoe's fingers were numb, despite the thick gloves Ivy had given her. She shivered as she walked, but she didn't complain. Not because she was tough, because she had learned quickly that survival required quiet strength. Ivy, on the other hand, marched confidently, boots crunching in the snow. She was pale, with sharp, intelligent eyes that constantly scanned the woods around them. Vampire instincts made her aware of everything. Every rustle, every shadow, every faint scent of human or animal life. "You're slow," Ivy teased, nudging Zoe. "I'm cold," Zoe said. "You'll get used to it," Ivy replied, smirking. "Or not. Either way, you'll learn." They reached the clearing where Tristan had first seen them together. Zoe set the books down on a large flat stone, brushing the snow off. Ivy knelt beside her, helping her organize the pile. The two girls had developed a rhythm over the past days. Ivy teaching, Zoe learning, both laughing at small mistakes, correcting each other, forming a bond Tristan had never imagined possible. But something was different tonight. Tristan appeared without warning. Not from the mansion, not from behind the trees, but standing in the clearing, silent, a figure carved out of shadow. His presence froze both girls instantly. "You're here again," Zoe whispered, more in awe than fear. "I'm always watching," Tristan replied. His voice was calm, but carried the weight of centuries. "I observe, I learn, I protect. That is my duty." Ivy's hands tightened around the books. "Dad," she said cautiously. Tristan's eyes flicked between the two of them. "Ivy, do you understand the risks of letting a human into our lives? Do you understand what you've done?" Ivy hesitated. I just wanted her to learn, to have a friend." Tristan's jaw tightened. "Friendship comes with consequences. You do not see them because you are blind to danger." Zoe stepped forward, her voice small but steady. "I'm not dangerous. I just want to learn. I just want to be safe." Tristan looked down at her, eyes narrowing slightly. For a moment, Zoe thought she might be punished. She expected a sharp word, a threat, a scolding, anything to remind her she didn't belong. Instead, Tristan did something entirely unexpected. He knelt before her. Zoe froze. The ground beneath her seemed to tremble. She hadn't realized that Tristan's height, even kneeling, dwarfed hers. But there was no malice in his red eyes. No predatory edge. Just curiosity. "You are brave," he said quietly. "And brave children are rare. But bravery alone cannot protect you. Do you understand?" Zoe nodded, her throat tight. "Yes." Tristan studied her for a long moment, then rose. "Good. Then we proceed carefully. You'll continue your lessons, but under strict supervision. I will not allow reckless exposure." Ivy exhaled quietly, relieved, though her arms were still crossed. "See? He's not mad." Tristan didn't answer. Instead, he turned toward the path that led back to the mansion. "Come, both of you. There is something you must see." Zoe's heart thudded in her chest. She followed, silently, feeling the weight of centuries in every step Tristan took. Ivy walked beside her, more alert than usual, and Zoe wondered what she had gotten herself into. When they reached the mansion's east wing, Tristan stopped in front of a large, ornate door. He placed his hand on the carved wood, and it opened silently, revealing a hidden chamber filled with relics, books, and objects that glimmered faintly with magic. "This is the archive," Tristan said. "Everything I have collected over my long life is here. Knowledge, history, artifacts, dangerous and powerful items. None of this is for children. Yet," he paused, turning to Zoe, "yet you are here, and I have decided that some things you must understand for your own safety and growth." Zoe stepped inside slowly, eyes wide. The room smelled of old parchment and something else she couldn't name. Something ancient, alive. Ivy whispered, "Dad doesn't usually let anyone in here." "I can see that," Zoe murmured, almost to herself. Tristan walked past them, picking up a small, blackened vial. He held out to Zoe. "Do you know what this is?" Zoe shook her head. "This," he said, "is a relic of power. It contains a warning and a lesson. If mishandled, it can harm humans. Yet you, a human, are holding it. Do you feel its weight?" Zoe nodded slowly. The vial was light, but the air around it pressed against her chest like invisible hands. Tristan's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. "Most humans would drop this, scream, or run. But you do not. Why?" "Because I have to learn," Zoe said. Her voice wavered, but there was determination in her eyes. "I have to survive." Tristan said nothing for a long moment. Then he placed the vial back on the shelf, and turned to Ivy. You have made a choice, Ivy. One that will change your life and that of another. Protecting Zoe is not just about kindness. It is about trust, caution, and the understanding that some things in this world are bigger than you. Do you understand? Ivy nodded. Yes, Dad. And you, Zoe? Tristan asked, fixing her with a piercing gaze. Zoe swallowed hard. I will be careful. I'll follow your rules. Good, Tristan interrupted. Because tonight, you will witness something that will shock you both. He stepped back toward the center of the chamber and raised his hands. The room darkened, shadows stretching unnaturally. Candles flickered, and a low hum filled the air, vibrating through the floor and walls. Zoe clutched Ivy's hand. What's happening? Tristan's voice was calm, almost reverent. You will see what a vampire can do, and why trust is not given lightly. Suddenly, the shadows shifted. Objects in the room floated gently into the air. Books opened on their own, pages flipping, letters glowing faintly. The air shimmered, and Zoe's hair rose on end. You can do that, Ivy whispered. Tristan's eyes glowed deeper red. Yes, and there is more you must understand about this world, Zoe. Power can protect, power can destroy, and power must be respected. Zoe's pulse raced. She had never felt anything like this. Awe, fear, fascination, all at once. She looked at Ivy, whose wide eyes mirrored her own shock. Then Tristan did something neither girl expected. He stepped forward and spoke quietly, almost as if confessing a secret. You are here not just to learn. You are here to understand that the world is not as simple as it seems. Some humans have no home, some vampires have no mercy, and some friendships are forged in the most unlikely ways. Zoe's heart pounded. She realized she had never heard anyone, human or vampire, speak with such honesty. The room was alive with magic, but Tristan's words carried a weight beyond anything in the chamber. And in that moment, she understood she was not just a visitor. She was part of something larger, something dangerous, something extraordinary. But before she could process it, Tristan lowered his hands, and the room returned to normal. Objects fell gently back onto shelves, pages closed, shadows returned to their corners. Ivy let out a long breath. That was insane. The mansion was unusually quiet that night, the kind of quiet that makes shadows feel heavier, longer, like they're listening. Tristan stood in the grand hall, pale fingers tapping against the railing of the spiral staircase, eyes glowing faintly red in the dim light. He could sense every movement, every breath of his daughter and Zoe, and it both calmed and unnerved him. Ivy sat cross-legged in the corner, her vampire senses alert, but her mood distracted. Zoe was on the rug, a small notebook in her lap, scribbling letters and words carefully. It was a scene of peaceful normalcy, deceptively normal. Tristan's thoughts were elsewhere. He had watched them for days. Ivy teaching, Zoe learning, the girls laughing quietly when no one was watching. He had felt something he hadn't in centuries, a flicker of hope. And yet, the danger was real. Humans discovering Ivy, or Zoe inadvertently revealing the mansion's secrets. It could be catastrophic. Tristan's mind wandered back to the first night he had seen Zoe at the gate. The fearless, shivering girl who dared to knock on his door, who looked at him not with fear, but with quiet defiance. That moment had changed everything. He turned silently, walking toward the girls. His movement was so swift, so smooth, that they didn't hear him until he cleared his throat. Both girls jumped, startled. Zoe's pencil fell to the floor. Ivy's eyes widened. "Daddy!" Ivy exclaimed, standing too quickly. "Relax," Tristan said, his voice calm, even gentle. "I am not angry." Zoe's mouth opened, then closed. She hadn't expected him to speak to her like that. He rarely addressed humans directly. Tristan's gaze softened as he crouched down to Zoe's level. "You are brave," he said quietly. "But more than that, you are kind. That is rarer than courage in this world." Zoe blinked. I don't understand." "You will," Tristan said. "You've given my daughter something I could not. Friendship, laughter, learning. For the first time in centuries, she is experiencing what it means to be a child, truly a child. and that is priceless. Ivy's shoulders relaxed. So, she's staying? She asked tentatively. Tristan's gaze flicked to his daughter. That is for me to decide. But I'm learning something too. And what I am learning is that the measure of a family is not blood alone. Zoe's heart pounded. A family? Did that word even belong to someone like her? Homeless, alone for so long, she had never imagined hearing it. Ivy, Tristan continued, will you allow Zoe to remain here, as she has proven herself to be trustworthy? Ivy's face softened. She looked at Zoe, who had been quiet, trembling slightly. Yes, Ivy whispered. She's my friend, and friends don't just leave each other. Tristan studied them both, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. He could feel the centuries of fear and control lifting slightly. Then came the moment that would shock everyone. Tristan reached out, placing one hand gently on Zoe's shoulder. You have a choice tonight, Zoe. You may return to the streets, where survival is cruel and uncertain, or you may remain in this mansion, under my protection, as part of this family. Zoe froze. The weight of his words crushed her in the best way. She had dreamed of safety, warmth, friendship, and now it was all within reach. She thought of the freezing nights on the streets, of the hunger, of the loneliness, and then she looked at Ivy. I want to stay, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I want to learn. I want to be part of this family. Tristan's eyes glimmered. Very well. Then, it is settled. He stepped back, and for the first time in centuries, Zoe saw something in his expression she could only call relief. Ivy grabbed Zoe's hand and pulled her into a hug. Welcome to the family, she said. Zoe clutched her notebook, tears streaming freely now. I never thought anyone would. Ivy interrupted with a laugh, brushing the snow from Zoe's hair. Shoo, stop crying. You're supposed to be learning, remember? For the first time, all three of them laughed. Tristan, the vampire king, standing silently behind them, allowing himself a rare moment of warmth. Days turned into weeks. Zoe's lessons continued, her reading skills improving rapidly under Ivy's guidance. But more importantly, the girls' bond deepened. Zoe taught Ivy things too. Simple things her father had not taught, like curiosity without fear, laughter without rules, and the joy of small victories. Tristan watched them, often from the shadows, but his heart felt lighter. He realized that what Zoe had given Ivy was irreplaceable, a piece of childhood he thought he had taken from her for her protection. Then came the first test. One evening, a group of humans stumbled upon the mansion's outskirts. They were curious, nosy, unaware of the ancient protections Tristan had laid. The scent of humans, alcohol, and reckless excitement drifted on the wind. Tristan knew he could scare them away instantly. He could strike, but he paused. Zoe looked up at him, sensing his tension. She had learned to read him, just as Ivy had taught her to read words. You trust me, don't you? She whispered. Tristan studied her. Then slowly he nodded. Yes. With that, Zoe led Ivy to a hidden path she had discovered behind the garden, keeping them both safe while Tristan confronted the intruders. The humans were turned away without harm, their curiosity thwarted, and the girls returned unharmed. Tristan realized then that trust was not weakness. Trust was power, a different kind of power, one that could protect the innocent even in a world ruled by fear. Weeks later, in the same clearing where they first met, Zoe and Ivy sat side by side, reading under the moonlight. Tristan watched from the shadows, silent, observing the laughter, the learning, the life. I never thought I'd have a friend, Ivy whispered. You always had me, Zoe replied softly. Ivy laughed. I mean a human friend. Someone who isn't, scary. Zoe smiled. You're not scary. You're just different, but in a good way. Tristan stepped into the clearing then, moonlight glinting off his pale skin. Ivy, he said softly, Zoe has done something extraordinary. She has taught both of you about friendship, courage, and life in ways even I could not. Ivy looked at her father, awestruck, and Tristan continued. From this day forward, Zoe Carter is part of this family. Not as a visitor, not as a pupil, but as someone who belongs. She is under my protection, and nothing will change that. Not time, not fear, not the world outside. Zoe's eyes widened. She could barely breathe. Really? Yes, Tristan said firmly. Really? Ivy jumped up and hugged Zoe tightly. Welcome home, she whispered. For the first time in her life, Zoe felt it. Real warmth, real safety, real belonging. She was no longer alone, no longer invisible. And Tristan, watching them, allowed himself a rare, genuine smile. He had faced centuries of darkness, empires rising and falling, immortality and solitude. But nothing had taught him more than the courage of a small homeless girl who dared to knock on his door. The world outside was still dangerous. Humans were still unpredictable. But inside these walls, laughter filled the halls. Learning filled the rooms. And friendship, something both fragile and eternal, had found its place. For Tristan, Ivy, and Zoe, life would never be the same again. And for the first time in 7 long years, Tristan allowed himself to believe in something he had long forgotten. Hope. Wow, what a journey! Tristan, Ivy, and Zoe's story shows us that bravery, friendship, and kindness can change even the darkest worlds. Who else has ever surprised you with their courage? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to read them all. If you were shocked by Tristan's decision and the twist with Zoe, make sure to smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and brings you more stories like this one. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that will blow your mind. Trust me, you won't miss what's coming next. More vampires, more drama, and more shocking twists. And here's a question for you. If you were Zoe, would you have knocked on Tristan's door, or would you have walked away? Comment below and let me know your answer. I'll be reading every single one. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the smallest, bravest person can change the world. Until next time.